delighted to have some of my colleagues from GAIA here. I'm Nipe Fagio, the Africa Regional Coordinator. I'm from South Africa. I think first up, Anna's already introduced everyone, and I think it's really fascinating, the idea of exchange and experience sharing. So maybe Froy, let's go to you. We had an incredible exchange where officials from Tanzania visited the Asia Pacific region, very similar countries having islands and mainlands, and waste issues in the global south being quite common. What is the meaning of that exchange in terms of scalability and building alliances within broader zero waste implementation?
Thank you for having us here. First, it was a great honor to host Mayor Mussa and a few other folks from Nipe Fagio to visit the Philippines and see how zero waste is being implemented in many cities and islands in the Philippines. The exchanges that we had between Tanzania and the Philippines are just one of the many great ways that we're able to harness the knowledge, the experience, and the learnings that we each had. Having been part of that exchange, what I realized was that there's so many things that is common between Zanzibar and Sikihor, for example. Both are amazing islands. Both are facing the same issues with waste, and both offer opportunities for each other to identify their learnings from their experience and build on that. Because I think that's the beauty of the movement that we have here, is that we get to learn from each other and we get to highlight each other. The second importance of that is those exchanges serves as affirmation for the good things that are happening. And we are excited, for example, to be here in Tanzania and see the amazing work that's happening in Salaam, in Zanzibar, and Rocha, because one, again, it's a space for us to learn as well, but also we hope that implementers from the Philippines, city officials of the Philippines visiting you and seeing how you're doing it would in a way inspire you further to continue the amazing work that you're doing and maybe continue that space of learning. So for GAIA, for many of us, we hope to continue this. We hope it doesn't end in this conference. We hope that the communication would continue and the learning exchange would continue, because now that Tanzania is doing amazing work, I'm sure other places in Africa and in Asia would have many things to learn from your experience here. So Mayor, I hope that someday you would also be hosting other officials from Asia and Africa to learn how Zanzibar has moved forward with their zero waste work.
Inshallah. Thank you. I think that's very insightful, looking at the similarities, and I think there's quite a lot of similarities between Latin America and Africa as well. So we have my colleague Magdalena here from Chile. Magda, how do you see some of these similarities between our two regions and how zero waste is being implemented?
Thank you, Niven, and thanks Tanzania for hosting us. There, in Latin America, we understand waste initiatives as community-led and people-centered, and I believe that is something very cross-cutting in the zero waste arena and strategies, but there are particular similarities among our regions that I think are important to highlight. Working in order to find solutions together with local and national decision makers is a key strategy to tackle those challenges. And one thing that I think is critical is that has to be in our regions hand to hand with waste pickers communities. They are the ones that have been doing the job for a long time and recognized and paid, and we have a very strategic relationship with them that I think is very similar to what happens here in Africa. So I believe that is one of the main aspects. In a region, also we have an important presence of indigenous peoples in our region, and We think that they provide a worldview and traditional uses much more closer to the systemic and holistic dimensions that zero waste promotes. So that is a space of work that, again, we believe is very common to the way Africa is working on zero waste issues. And to finish, in terms of the commonalities, I believe, well, in Latin America in particular, there is one country that has identified nature as a subject of rights in the constitution. That is Ecuador, and therefore we as human beings understand that we have the obligation to design systems that also care for nature. There is an important connection with that. And just to finish, I would like to mention that in the arena of the concerns that we have, and that we really have to take to put attention on that, and the fact of being an international alliance of organizations and waste pickers that are working on waste issues, we believe that can give us enough strength to tackle those concerns that are related to, in general, the importance of understanding that we need a system change. We need to consume and produce in a less and in a different way than we have done it until now. And the extraction of natural resources from the south is something that is a big concern to all of us, and it's really related to zero waste. Finally, we are extracting things to produce things that we not necessarily need, and then we have to deal with that. And also the colonial trend of dumping waste from other regions to our lands is something that is of great concern for us, and it can really be a threat to the zero waste strategies that we are promoting. But overall, I believe that the great commonality is that there is such an amazing number of organizations, grassroots decision makers that are really taking this challenge of zero waste. That we are very hopeful of the future around that, and working together is essential.
Thank you, Magda. It's really interesting, such diversity as a movement, that we have so many common threads that unite the way we work across regions around zero waste implementation. And I think just cross-regionally, we've seen so many ways in which zero waste is implemented in a similar way. Even within Tanzania and East Africa, we're seeing a very ambitious block being built, where not only is Tanzania championing zero waste in the country, there are other enabling factors around the sub-region where Rwanda has banned plastic, Kenya has taken some ambitious action. So starting to see a lot more regional collaboration and ambition towards advancing zero waste agendas. So Jack, I know in Europe there's a lot of efforts regionally around the implementation of zero waste. Maybe you could share with us some of your experiences from Zero Waste Europe.
Yeah, sure thing. Asante sana. Thank you for having us here. When I got off the plane at the airport, one of the first things you hear on the loudspeaker is, "Please do not bring a plastic bag into this country." And I was like, "Oh, it's good to be it's good to be here." So yeah, it's a pleasure to be in Dar es Salaam for this conference. At the EU level, we obviously have a legally binding legislative framework that provides harmonized goals and targets for all 27 member states. So, for example, it's required that every government must recycle 65% of municipal solid waste by 2035. So what this means is that there are a huge range of diverse contexts, but we all work towards a shared mission and a shared goal. So that means that groups like Zero Waste Europe, the European chapter of GAIA, and our partners with cities and businesses, we want to make a difference, and it means that we can unite across borders. And whilst we have this framework at the EU, what you see, and I think is particularly relevant in East Africa, is that there are sub-regions that work together, whether that's Scandinavian countries in the north, Mediterranean countries in the south. These sort of sub-regional groups share much more common cultures and values and languages, and that's where the biggest impact can be had in terms of sharing best practices and understanding too, both practically with workshops and trainings and legislative examples, but also motivationally, because sometimes it can be quite tough to continue working when the challenges seem to be getting tougher and never ending. So yeah, I wanted to end by just saying I think the cross-regional work that we see in Europe and the sub-regional work allows our collective voice to be louder rather than if we acted alone. And I think that's a really strong example that hopefully can be taken here in East Africa. I think there's a lot that countries here can learn from Europe, but importantly, there's a lot that European countries and cities can learn from here too. So maybe when the next visit in Zanzibar is organized, there can be a few European islands joining for it too.
Wonderful, thank you, Jack. And I think it's really important, at a policy level, but also just the role of civil society and movements within zero waste implementation. Next up, Marcel from GAIA, US and Canada, and particularly talking about movements and the role of civil society and broadly environmental justice. How do you see the importance of environmental justice in the solid waste management sector?
Absolutely. Thank you, Niven, and thank you, Tanzania. Thank you for hosting us here in Tanzania. It's a beautiful country. It's so good to be here. Yeah, it's a great and very important question, Niven. I think from a U.S. and Canadian standpoint, I think we have to remind ourselves that zero waste practices are not new. We've learned and spoke about this throughout the International Zero Waste Cities conference so far, about some of the direct experiences of zero waste. And I think it's important for us to remember that cultures across the globe have been practicing zero waste for generations and successfully as well. And it's really the colonialism and capitalism that can be credited with creating the existing waste and climate crises that we're currently dealing with. And that's why environmental justice to us is so important. EJ really works to dismantle these structures that have really put greed and profit before human environmental health. If we're real about addressing our waste and climate crises, then we need systemic change, right? And that needs to be from the ground up, and that involves bringing everyone to the table. We're not going to fix our climate and waste problems by just supporting the few. We know that's what's gotten to us. That's what's gotten us in this place in the first place. So we really have to support the many and ensure everyone has the ability to contribute to our overall success, or else we're just fighting a losing battle.
There's been pilot projects as well as more significant projects put together. We're finally at a point where the government of Tanzania has requested money through both the World Bank and the government of the Netherlands to invest in the solid waste system in Dar es Salaam. And an important part of that will be scaling and implementing zero waste within the context of Dar es Salaam. The work that Nipe Fagio did in piloting this shows a system that can be cost efficient, that can provide jobs, can reduce waste and reduce emissions from waste in Dar es Salaam. And the idea that what we're committing to and what we're working to with the government to do is to try to see how this can be scaled, both within the context of the Mzimbazi Basin Development Project and the Dar es Salaam Metropolitan Development Project Phase 2. And it's super exciting to be here to be able to announce that and to be working with the government to